Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're talking about episode 4 of Mission Yozakura Family. If there's ever been any character in the history of anime that could perfectly encapsulate the song Happiness is a Warm Gun by the Beatles, it is without question Shinzo from this series. I really enjoyed Shinzo's character development here, and I thought it was really cool to get to see a spotlight put on him because of the various siblings that are not Hyoichiro, he's actually the one I've been the most curious about. I've just been teasingly calling him Oscar the Grouch for a few weeks, but I'm finally starting to slowly get better at some of these names. I'm still gonna mess some of them up, but I'll do my best, guys. I really think that it's cool when we see all the stuff happening with him, though, that what we're seeing is a character who is super hyper competent at a single thing, which in his case is the ability to utilize, it seems like, anything as a weapon, while at the same time struggling with this internal panic and terror if he doesn't actually have anything that he can use to defend himself. This really makes sense when you think of it, because if you spent your whole life learning how to use different weapons to protect yourself, and you became a specialist at utilizing tools to do that, you would also become hyper aware of the reality that when you use stuff like this, you super duper hurt people. So if you don't have a weapon, but your enemy does, you're kind of screwed. And as somebody who knows how to use weapons, you also understand the consequences of them. It kind of ties back to the idea that the people who are the least likely to try and start a fight are going to be the people who would be the most likely to finish it. And I thought that was a very clever underlying theme for his character. One other thing I super like about him is that it's not merely that he can just shoot a gun. That by itself is rather ordinary and is a skill that anyone can pick up if they have the willingness and patience to get a hold of a weapons license and to actually go to a range. Shinzo goes way beyond that, though, because he's more akin to something like John Wick, where if he doesn't actually have access to a weapon, if he can get his hands on something as simple as, in his case, a fork, he can actually launch that thing as if it's a grenade launcher. And we see this because when he actually does run out of weapons and he has to put his weapon down because Taiyo is actually in danger, Taiyo is able to throw him a fork, and Shinzo tosses it like it is a shuriken or something, like a ninja weapon. It goes through the air, it cuts through a freaking sniper rifle, and it ends a guy. It was a hot mess. And that was crazy. That literally, again, reminds me of that pencil scene in John Wick, which is hilarious, as I said, given the kind of character that he is and the duality of his personality that we see in this episode. The other super nice touches about that particular fork throw, or fork you, that we saw in this episode are that the fork was actually his theme color, which seems to be green. I always love it when these big cast shows do a good job at theming their characters, so it's very easy to tell who is who and what's going on. It also looked like it was more like a kid's fork. It wasn't a long, elegant, silver fork that you'd use for fine dining or something. It was more like the cutesy little forks with a short length and a chubby handle that you'd give a little kid. I wonder maybe if this was a weapon that he actually trained with when he was small, and that the reason they hold on to this and give it to him in times of crisis is that it's almost like a soothing thing, like a pacifier. If so, that's definitely quirky and weird, but that is part of what this show is about. The fact that energy wrapped around the fork, making it look as though it was actually encased in a bullet itself, was also a really cool touch. Just wanted to add that. As much as I sing the praises of his competence, I actually also really liked the moments where we actually saw him being vulnerable. First off, because I think the characters are much more interesting when they have an actual weakness, but also because what we see when that happens is that Matsumi actually immediately starts working to comfort him and calm him down over the voice communication stuff they have going on. And it actually shows how Matsumi has important roles in missions even though she isn't necessarily there herself and fighting on the front line. This is something we see a lot with her character in this episode in a variety of different ways, and I thought that it was really cool to see the kind of impact and importance that she actually has on the other characters, and the way that she actually contributes to the family and its overall success in missions. Also the fact that we learn from Matsumi that Shinzo is the kind of person who will lay down his weapons even though he knows he's going to be objectively terrified if it means that he could potentially save a family member, was incredibly heartwarming. He is very quickly scaling up in the listings of my favorite characters in the show. I was already genuinely intrigued by him and I already found his design fun, but he has massively jumped up as of now in how I feel about the various characters. I wonder how much we'll see that happen again and again as we go forward. Considering that we also see various quirks and competencies in Kengo in the first half of the episode, I kind of have this theory now that after episode 3, we're going to be seeing the various siblings and other characters in this world possess both a strength and a weakness, a quirk in the My Hero Academia sense, as well as a quirk in the normal sense we would describe something as being quirky or off-putting. And I think that's really cool. As I said earlier about Shinzo, I think that it makes it so we can connect with the characters much more easily. And with the talk of Kengo, let's actually jump back to the first half of the episode because I kind of went forward in time because I just had to talk about Shinzo first because everything that happened there was just so awesome. But the first half was super solid too, don't get me wrong. We get brought into the story right away watching Matsumi actually add poison to a meal she is cooking for Taiyo. And it's frickin' cyanide at this point. That is not something to be played with. Like, holy crap, dude. That was crazy. And then of course we see some massive comedy with Taiyo walking in, trying to figure out how to put on a bra and wearing a pair of boxers, with Matsumi going, "Don't worry, dear, I will support you regardless of what your sexual preferences are." And Taiyo's just like, "No, I'm just trying to practice disguise stuff with Kengo." It's like, oh man, I almost died. But that's the thing about this show. It mixes different things together so beautifully. The heartwarming support of Matsumi mixed with the hilarity of what was happening with Taiyo. And then Kyochiro coming in and being like, "Give me a goodbye kiss," and Matsumi just putting a complete bean on his head, smacking him because no. No, big brother, that is creepy as hell. And yeah, that was nothing in comparison to the frickin' shrine he has of her that we find later. What on earth was that, my dudes? That was wild. But let's talk about Kengo. I keep getting off topic here. Kengo was really funny in this episode, and we got to see some really cool aspects of his ability to alter his appearance, and we actually learned a bit more about the consequences of how it works, and the fact that it can massively damage his skin. We didn't learn that through some annoying lecture or something like that though. Instead, we're actually trying to play kind of almost a game of hide and seek to catch him, because there's some paperwork he hasn't signed and Matsumi's really annoyed about that. But when we go into his room and we do find him, we find him trapped in a mound of clothing and other stuff, and when he jumps out of that, it's like he's decided that he's going to be the protagonist of that old country comedy thing called The Streak, and he just comes out buck naked and is like, "Oh my god, what are you doing, sir?" That was really weird. And yeah, Matsumi and Taiyo have to put up with that, and it was annoying, but it was funny. Then we actually get the part where he switches places with Taiyo and is actually using Taiyo as a disguise. And Matsumi eventually figures this out and is able to catch him and get him to do the stuff she wants. And I thought it was so heartwarming how she was able to actually figure it out, because she noticed small mannerisms about how Taiyo would do things versus how Kengo is doing things. And it was that actually led to her being able to figure out what had gone on. It really shows how much attention to detail that Matsumi is capable of actually showing. We also see that when she's doing the paperwork and keeps having to make sure she doesn't accidentally sign documents sent in by Kyochiro, where he's trying to get the two of them divorced so that he can get rid of Taiyo. It's like, what is wrong with you, my dude? But of course, it was funny. I think my favorite thing, though, at the start of the episode was the part where Taiyo and Matsumi are going to school, and there's a baseball coming down, and Taiyo just reaches out, catches it, he's not even looking at it, and then he turns around and throws it back, and I mean, I thought that man's hand was gonna go off. And he and Matsumi are talking later, and Matsumi reminds him like, yo dude, you've got to make sure that you're careful when you do things or you're going to expose that you have these powers. And we really can't have that, because not only was there the baseball situation, but there's also this situation where she's describing that students are starting to think that he walks like a ninja because they can no longer hear his footsteps. That was hilarious. It was also really great in that situation with Shinzo where everything goes to hell, because it's actually Taiyo that goes in and deals with that, and we actually get to see him take down a few dudes and actually stand on his own 2 feet, which was really cool because it shows how far he's come, and it shows that we've also taken only one real episode to really do a training montage for him, and that now we're seeing the results of the work he's actually put in, which is going to be great going forward and allowing us to actually progress the story. Another thing I really liked about Taiyo's part of the whole Taiyo and Shinzo rescue mission is the fact that when Taiyo goes on this mission, he doesn't get away scot-free. He actually ends up being shot in the thigh, and Shinzo has to end up rescuing him. It's so cool because when the first half of it's going on, it's Taiyo rescuing Shinzo, and then it turns around, Shinzo has to deal with his fear and he has to take action and everything, and it ends up being Shinzo rescuing Taiyo. And I really love how we see different characters getting different aspects in the spotlight, and that it's not just about any one character entirely, but that we see that these missions and these things that happen are a family affair and are a team effort, and that every character, whether it's Matsumi, any of the siblings, Taiyo, or anyone else that's connected to them, every single one of them are going to matter, and that's amazing. In my opinion, Mission Yozakura Family is one of the funniest anime running this season, and I'm absolutely loving it more with every episode that I watch. But what are you guys thinking? Are you guys enjoying this one? Do you guys have a favorite character yet? Is there somebody who you can't wait to see their backstory or to see just how they operate? I'd love to know, so drop a comment below. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!